I came west to teach and to heal, not to fall in love with two men, but maybe the Lord had other plans. Those were the words Amelia Ross whispered, half to herself, half to fate. She was the only daughter of Nathaniel Ross, a battlefield surgeon who fell during the bloody storms of the Civil War. When her father died, Amelia inherited not just his medical tools, but his unfinished dream. Boston, with its soot-choked streets and mournful train whistles, held nothing for her anymore. Every corner was a reminder of loss, so Amelia left it all behind, carrying only a weathered wooden case packed with textbooks, tinctures, and bandages, and a fragile hope. Her destination was Dusthaven, a wind-blown town, carved out of dry prairie and jagged mountains, the kind of place where the sky burned too hot, the land gave too little, and every stranger's glance carried suspicion. Amelia felt it from the start, the loneliness of standing alone in a place that didn't want her. But deep in her chest, a small fire still burned, the promise she made to her father, that she would bring knowledge and healing to a land where both were scarce. Yet Dusthaven was ruled by more than dust and drought. It was gripped by Edgar Thompson, a mayor as ruthless as he was greedy. He controlled the land, the water, and the lives of everyone who tried to resist. Most folks bowed to his power, but Amelia Ross was not born to bow. And then, on her first day in Dusthaven, two riders appeared: Wyatt Kane, Caleb Ward, men of hard shoulders and harder reputations. They rode black horses across the square, their presence like two shadows cast by the mountains themselves. Whispers followed them, tales of border raids crushed under their guns, of men who answered to no law but their own. Yet when Amelia's eyes met theirs, she didn't see menace. She saw loss. She saw strength. She saw something fierce, and yet quietly gentle. That moment changed everything. Threads of destiny, silent and unseen, began weaving three lives together. Because Amelia's journey would not just be about bringing books and medicine to the West, it would become a story of love condemned by an entire town, of a proposal that defied every rule, and of a family stitched together by three hearts in a land where law no longer reigned. The stagecoach rattled to a halt in the heart of Dusthaven's dusty square. Its wheels ground deep into cracked earth, leaving long jagged scars like old wounds across the street. Amelia Ross stepped down, her plain calico dress instantly powdered with road dust as the prairie wind swept past. In her hands she carried a weathered wooden case, heavy, not with gold or finery, but with the weight of duty, of faith, and of a promise she carried from her father's grave. The townsfolk paused. The blacksmith wiped sweat from his brow. The storekeeper stopped counting coins. Even the children, caught mid-laughter, froze to gape at the young woman who had come from the east. Whispers spread like dry wind through brittle grass. An older man, voice thick with whiskey, muttered under his breath, "A woman, out here on her own? Either she's brave, or she's a fool." Amelia said nothing. She only tightened her grip on the box, offered the children a soft smile, and made her way toward the weather-beaten shack the town had grudgingly offered as a schoolhouse. 4 warped walls, a leaky roof, benches buried under years of dust. Yet Amelia's gaze held steady. To her, this ruin was not an insult. It was a beginning. That night she took a rented cot in the inn of Isabella Moreno, a Mexican woman hardened by half a lifetime on the frontier. Isabella studied the newcomer with eyes full of equal parts pity and admiration. Shaking her head, she said, voice low and rough, "Girl, this land won't be kind. It will test you every day, every hour. But in your eyes, I don't see surrender." Amelia answered with a quiet smile. "My father saved men beneath cannon fire. I don't think the wounds of Dusthaven will frighten me." The next morning she unlocked her schoolhouse door. Fewer than a dozen children trickled in, barefoot, in ragged shirts, some clinging nervously to their mother's skirts. Amelia spread her books across the desk, hands trembling ever so slightly, but her eyes shone bright. Her voice rose warm and steady, wrapping around those children like a blanket against the harsh world outside. And then, the sound of hooves. Heavy, relentless. The whole room seemed to hold its breath. Through the window, two riders emerged from the dust. Wyatt Kane, his sharp-cut face and eyes like cold steel, and Caleb Ward, steady, calm, tipping his hat with the faintest of smiles. Their black horses strode into the square, and Dusthaven itself fell silent. A mother clutched her boy close, whispering, "Stay clear of them. Those men, they ain't gentle souls." Wyatt sat tall in the saddle, his piercing gaze sweeping across the town until it landed on Amelia's classroom. For a heartbeat, his eyes measured her, tested her. Caleb, by contrast, removed his hat, nodding slowly, his warm brown eyes brushing hers like a quiet touch. Amelia stood frozen. Her pulse thundered, not from fear, but from something far stranger. Stronger. A force she couldn't name, yet couldn't ignore. And in that fleeting moment, she had no way of knowing. Those two glances would pull her life onto a path no one in Dusthaven could have imagined. Amelia had barely begun setting her classroom to rights when a shadow fell across the square. Edgar Thompson. He climbed down from his polished carriage, the wheels still creaking as he straightened the black vest stretched across his heavy frame. A felt hat dipped low over his eyes, but not low enough to hide the hunger burning there. Folks stepped back without being told, clearing a path, heads bowed. Thompson wasn't just the mayor. He was Dusthaven's master. He owned the land. He owned the water. And out here, whoever controlled the water controlled life itself. He used that power to make every man and woman dance like puppets on his strings. His gaze swept over Amelia, sharp as a drawn blade. Then his mouth curved into a smile. Thin, cold. A young lady all the way from the east. "I hear you've come to teach letters and patch wounds? Dusthaven doesn't need letters. It needs water. It needs land. It needs obedience." Amelia's heart hammered, but her voice stayed calm, steady. "People also need hope, sir, and sometimes a word, or a strip of bandage, can mean the difference between life and death." For the first time, Thompson's smile faltered. His eyes hardened, a flash of steel at her quiet defiance. Around them, townsfolk lowered their eyes, silently pleading she wouldn't push him further. No one in Dusthaven challenged Edgar Thompson and lived unscathed. That night, back at the boarding house, Isabella Moreno waited on the porch, her dark eyes heavy with worry. She rasped softly, "Girl, don't cross Thompson. He's made people vanish before. Out here, no law will protect you." Amelia laid a hand on the weathered wooden box she carried everywhere. Her father's books, his remedies, his unfinished dream. Her voice was quiet, but unshaken. "I didn't come here to kneel. If my father could save the wounded under cannon fire, then I can stand firm here." But Dusthaven's nights held more than silence. At the edge of town, the glow of campfires often lit two tall figures against the darkening sky, Wyatt Kane and Caleb Ward. Some whispered they were guardians, others swore they were a curse. One evening, cutting through a narrow alley, Amelia froze at the sound of Wyatt's voice, low, gravelly, sharp, with warning. "Thompson's gonna swallow this whole town. If we don't stop him, there won't be a soul left with land to stand on." Caleb answered, quiet and even, but the kind of quiet that cut like a knife. "And the new girl, Amelia. Did you see her eyes? They're not like the others. She hasn't learned how to bow." Wyatt fell silent for a long breath before his reply came, rough as boot leather. "That's exactly what worries me." Amelia stood hidden in the shadows, heart pounding. She realized she'd stumbled onto something far larger than her little schoolhouse. In Dusthaven, it wasn't only the children who needed light. Even the men bound to darkness were searching for a way out. That night, the skies over Dusthaven churned with hot wind. Clouds glowed red at the horizon, like coals hanging in the heavens. And then came the real fire. A wooden outpost on the edge of town went up in flames. The wind fanned it wild, an angry beast roaring to life, devouring rooftops one by one. Screams echoed, children's cries split the night. Amelia burst out of the boarding house, clutching her wooden medical box tight against her chest. The flames painted her face in streaks of orange and fear, but she heard her father's voice in her memory. In chaos, you must be the first hand that reaches out. She ran toward the blaze. Townsfolk stumbled about, throwing pitiful buckets of water against a wall of fire. The inferno only grew. Some gave up and fled. Despair was spreading faster than the flames. Then, from the darkness, 2 riders thundered in. Wyatt Kane leapt from his black horse, his face grim, his strong hands ripping rope from his saddle to pull down burning beams before they could spread the fire. Caleb Ward was already shoulder-deep in the fight, grabbing buckets, shouting commands that cut through the panic. "Don't run! Line up! Pass the water down! Save what we can save!" Amelia dropped to her knees beside a boy, his arm blistered from the heat. Her hands shook as she opened her box, but her voice was steady as she wrapped the wound with strips of clean cloth. "You're safe now, son. Breathe slow. I've got you." The air was thick with choking smoke, the fire crackling like gunshots. A burning timber crashed down, inches from where Amelia knelt. Wyatt lunged, yanking her to her feet. His voice was rough, furious. "Are you out of your mind? This place is too damn dangerous!" Amelia coughed, lifting her soot-streaked face, eyes fierce even through the ash. "If I run, who saves the children?" Wyatt froze, struck silent for a heartbeat. Then, without another word, he turned back to the fire, pulling the rope hard and dragging a burning section of roof to the ground. Caleb's voice rose again, rallying the men of Dusthaven into a human chain. Hour after hour they fought, until finally, the blaze weakened. What remained was ruin, smoke curling from collapsed beams. But most of the town still stood. Exhausted citizens collapsed where they were. And through the haze, 3 figures stood tallest. Amelia, her hands burned and bandaged but steady. Wyatt, face blackened with ash, jaw set hard. And Caleb, his chest heaving, managing a faint, weary smile. An old man's voice trembled in the quiet, breaking the silence. If not for her, and for those 2 men, Dusthaven would be nothing but ash tonight. From that moment on, the people no longer saw Amelia Ross as just a stranger. She had stood in the fire with them. And from that same night, an invisible bond tied Amelia, Wyatt, and Caleb together. Not through vows, not through words, but through smoke, blood, and the first fire of destiny. After the fire, Dusthaven was never quite the same. At first, folks spoke in awe. Amelia Ross, the schoolteacher from the East, had stood in the flames. And Wyatt Kane and Caleb Ward, 2 riders most folks feared, had fought to save the town. But gratitude in Dusthaven was short-lived. Awe soon curdled into whispers, and whispers sharpened into poison. In the dry goods store, a woman pressed her lips thin, lowering her voice as Amelia walked by. "She ain't like the rest of us women. Walking around with those 2 riders? Mark my words. Nothing good'll come of it." At the forge, a blacksmith scowled, his voice like iron striking an anvil. "Those men live outside the law. Any woman tied to them will only bring trouble." Amelia heard it all. Every step through the marketplace carried the weight of their stares. But she pressed her lips together and held her head high. Still. In her heart, the images of Wyatt and Caleb burned stronger than the gossip. Wyatt often came by the schoolhouse, standing silent in the doorway, his steel-gray eyes softening as he watched her trace letters on the dusty wooden board. Caleb, in contrast, would bring jars of rare herbs, setting them gently into her hands with a quiet smile. "You'll need these. The night wind's dry. Too many little ones are coughing already." But not everyone welcomed their bond. Edgar Thompson was watching. In the mayor's office, his fist slammed against oak, rattling the lamp. A girl from the East dares steal this town's admiration. And leaning on those drifters? If we let it stand, folks will think we've grown weak. No, it's time she learns her place. The pressure came swift. The church refused to lend her benches and tables. Families pulled their children from class, muttering that The schoolmistress ain't proper. On the schoolhouse wall, scrawled in blackened charcoal, were the words that cut like a whip. Whore of the Riders. One evening, Amelia sat slumped at her desk, the classroom empty, tears dripping onto the scarred wood. The door creaked open. Wyatt filled the frame, his voice rough as ever. Don't let 'em break you. You're stronger than every damn one of them put together. Her eyes lifted, red-rimmed, her voice trembling. But all I ever wanted was to teach, to heal. Why does that make me their joke? Behind Wyatt, Caleb stepped in. His eyes were calm, steady, his voice firm. Because you dared to be different. And difference makes them afraid. But Amelia... He paused, his gaze unwavering. You're not standing alone. And in that moment, in the hollow quiet of the schoolhouse, the three of them stood together. Amelia, Wyatt, and Caleb. Outside, Dusthaven hissed with suspicion and scorn. But inside that little wooden room, a bond was forming. Tighter, stronger, and more dangerous than anyone outside could imagine. That night, Dusthaven lit up with its little harvest festival. Torches burned bright around the square. Fiddles wailed their wild frontier tunes, and boots stomped against the dirt in rhythm. But Amelia Ross stood alone, pressed against the shadows, her heart heavy with the sting of endless whispers. From behind her, Isabella Moreno appeared, the old innkeeper, her voice rough with years but warm with kindness. She placed a hand on Amelia's shoulder and murmured, "Child, you can't hide forever, you can't. Sometimes the only way to silence them is to show you're not afraid." Amelia drew a steadying breath and stepped toward the firelight. And just then, they appeared. Wyatt Kane and Caleb Ward. But not as the town usually saw them. Not as grim riders out of some gunslinger's tale. Wyatt wore a simple white shirt, his coat tossed loosely over one shoulder. His eyes were still sharp as steel, but the firelight softened them. Caleb had a half smile, his hat tucked in one hand, as he walked directly toward Amelia. Caleb bowed his head slightly, his voice low, gentle, but firm. You saved this town from the fire. You've earned your place here. Don't let them shove you back into the dark. All around, Amelia could feel the stares, the judgment heavy as chains. Her pulse quickened, until Caleb held out his hand. And beside him, Wyatt gave the smallest nod, rough and unspoken, but true. With a breath, Amelia placed her hand in Caleb's. He led her into the circle where the townsfolk danced. The fiddle cried higher, the drumbeat pounded. In the whirl of the dance, Amelia's dress flared, her hair swept across her shoulders, and her eyes caught the fire's glow. For the first time since stepping into Dusthaven, she looked alive. As Caleb spun her around, he passed her toward Wyatt. Wyatt's grip was sudden, steady, his voice rough, almost reluctant, but shaking with something real. Don't fear them. You're not alone out here. Amelia's breath caught, her cheeks flushed, but his eyes, cold and guarded for so long, held nothing but truth. The circle moved on, and for a brief, impossible moment, the three of them moved as one, an Eastern schoolteacher and two riders whispered about as outlaws. Around them, the square rippled with shock. Some faces sneered, some laughed under their breath, others just stared, caught in the spell of something they didn't understand. And when the music ended, Amelia, Wyatt, and Caleb stood close, their breaths mingling in the cool desert night. Caleb leaned in, his voice no louder than the crackle of the torches. You stepped into the light with us tonight. From here on, there's no going back. Amelia looked at them both. One face carved in stone, the other as calm as running water. Her heart trembled, not with fear, but with a warmth she hadn't known she could feel. That night, Dusthaven buzzed with gossip louder than ever. But for Amelia Ross, the dance in the dark was no scandal. It was the beginning, the moment when fate bound three lives tighter than any whisper could unravel. After that dance in the square, the talk in Dusthaven stopped being whispers and turned into outright accusation. Folks now said Amelia Ross had thrown herself into disgrace by being seen with Wyatt Kane and Caleb Ward. The gossip spread fast, and in his office, Edgar Thompson smirked like a man who smelled blood. One morning, Amelia opened the schoolroom door and found it nailed shut. On the wood, someone had scrawled, "Get out of Dusthaven." She stood there, hands trembling, the message burning in her chest. Wyatt came up behind her like a storm on the horizon, face hard as flint. Low and rough, he growled, "Cowards! If I catch the one who did this—" Caleb put a steadying hand on Wyatt's shoulder and turned to Amelia. His voice was calm, but there was worry under the surface. "They're trying to drag you out into the open. This isn't idle threats." Amelia lifted her head. Even beneath the fear, her eyes were bright with resolve. "If I run now," she said, "then those children will think books and hope don't matter. I can't leave." The message made its rounds, from the pews of the church to the benches in the saloon. People started to avoid her in the marketplace, lowering their voices as she passed. But when dusk fell, a shadow came and stayed in front of the nailed schoolhouse door. Edgar Thompson stood there, tapping his cane against the dirt, a thin, cold smile cutting across his face. "Miss Ross," he said, voice oiled with menace, "this town isn't for your kind of spectacle. If you want to teach, you'll do it under my rules. If not, you'd be wise to leave before you go up like that Millhouse did." Amelia's body stiffened, but she answered steady, every syllable measured. "I did not come to be your puppet. I came to give Dusthaven what it needs." Thompson laughed, a sound that sliced the night. "Needs? This town needs me. You're a nuisance. And those horsemen of yours, they'll drag you to your grave." From the darkness, Wyatt stepped forward, hand tight on his rifle. His voice was ice. "That's enough, Thompson. Lay another hand on her and you'll learn the cost." Caleb stood beside him, the gentleness gone from his face, replaced by a rare, hard resolve. "This isn't just Amelia's fight anymore. Don't mistake that." Thompson paused, then snorted in contempt and turned away. As he melted into the night, he spat one last threat like a curse. "You three won't have a place in Dusthaven. I'll turn the whole town against you." When the shadow swallowed him, Amelia, Wyatt, and Caleb drew close beneath the guttering torchlight. Words weren't needed. They all knew the truth now. The rumors had become a campaign, and Edgar Thompson's shadow would follow them until either the town or they were broken. Night settled over Dusthaven, heavy with gray clouds, as if the sky itself was holding back a storm. Amelia sat on the porch of Isabella Moreno's old wooden house, her father's worn journal resting in her hands. On the pages, faded ink spelled out crude notes on medicine and his final words, "Never stop healing, no matter where you are." Footsteps creaked against the planks. Wyatt Kane stepped into the lantern glow, leaning against a porch post. His slate-gray eyes locked on her, sharp yet uneasy. When he spoke, his voice was low and rough, carrying a hesitation he rarely allowed to slip through. "You realize you've turned this whole town against you, don't you? Thompson won't quit. You still have a chance to walk away." Amelia closed the book and lifted her gaze to his. Her voice was steady, though there was fire beneath every word. "If I leave, every child here loses faith. I didn't come to Dusthaven to give up, Wyatt." He said nothing for a long beat. Then, with a sigh, the hardness in his eyes softened, just slightly. His words came out like a confession dragged from a place long buried. "You remind me of what I used to believe, before the battlefield stripped it away." The back door creaked open. Caleb Ward emerged carrying a lantern, the golden light painting warmth across his calm features. He set it down, pulled up a chair beside Amelia, and spoke in a quiet, steady tone. "You don't have to face all of this alone. We stood with you when the fire came. We'll stand here too when Thompson sets his traps." Amelia looked between them, one man, all raw force and scarred honesty, the other, steady and kind as a flowing stream. Different, yet together they felt like a shield rising around her. Slowly she spoke, her words carrying the weight of a vow whispered to fate itself. "If destiny brought us together, then I'll walk with you both, through fire or through the hatred of this whole town." Caleb's lips curved into a quiet smile, his eyes burning with certainty. "Then, Amelia, we're family. A family of three, no matter if the world calls it sin. Wyatt didn't speak. Instead, he stepped closer and set his calloused hand on the wooden box Amelia still held tight to. A wordless gesture, but heavy with a promise from a man who had lost everything once already. Never again. The night wind rushed across the porch, the lantern flames swaying in its glass. And there, beneath the groaning beams of Isabella's old home, 3 souls sat shoulder to shoulder. Outside, Dusthaven brimmed with threats. But in that moment, only one truth remained, an unbreakable promise. They would face it all, together. Rain poured down on Dusthaven like the heavens themselves had split open. Heavy drops hammered the wooden rooftops, washing the red dust into muddy rivers that carved through the town's main street. But inside Amelia Ross's chest, the storm raged even fiercer. The town had moved past whispers. Now the scorn was public. Parents pulled their children from her class. Laughter rang out in the saloon at her expense. And Edgar Thompson spread his poison everywhere, declaring that Amelia Ross had turned Dusthaven into a disgrace with her shameful life alongside 2 outlaws. One afternoon, as Amelia cleaned the battered schoolhouse, the door burst open. Wyatt Kane strode in, drenched to the bone, his eyes burning like the storm outside. He grabbed her arm, voice gravelly, each word heavy as thunder. "You can't keep living like this. They'll tear you apart. Come with me. Tonight." Before she could answer, Caleb Ward stepped through the door, his cloak soaked with rain, his calm face lit by a rare spark of intensity. He placed a firm hand on Wyatt's shoulder, steadying his fury, then turned to Amelia. His voice was low, resolute. "Amelia, we can't keep running. We have to stand, but not alone. You, me, and Wyatt. Together, there isn't a force alive that can tear us apart." Amelia's breath caught. She looked at the 2 men before her, one sharp as steel, the other warm as firelight. Fear trembled in her chest, but so did something stronger. Her voice cracked as she spoke. "The whole town will see it as sin. They'll never accept us." Wyatt stepped forward, his eyes blazing, rain dripping from his jawline. "To hell with them. I don't care what Thompson spits or what Dusthaven curses. I only care if you have the courage to take our hands." Then Caleb reached gently for hers. His palm was warm, steady, pulling her back from the edge of despair. His words came soft but certain, like a vow etched in stone. "It isn't 2 roads, Amelia. It's one. A single path where all 3 of us walk. Family doesn't have to look like their rules. It's made by hearts that choose each other." The rain pounded harder, the wind howling through the cracks of the schoolhouse like a trumpet of warning. Amelia felt the world tilting around her. And then, her father's memory flashed. A man who had stood on battlefields, defying death and judgment alike, simply to save lives. She understood then. Sometimes courage wasn't doing what the world called right. It was following what your soul knew was true. She drew a breath, tears mixing with rain that sprayed through the open window. Her voice rose, firm and unshaken. "If this is destiny, then yes, I choose it. I choose both of you. We will be a family." Wyatt's grip tightened, his fierce eyes alight as though he'd been waiting his whole life for that moment. Caleb bowed his head, a tender smile breaking through the storm. And so, inside that battered wooden schoolhouse, with thunder rolling and rain pounding overhead, a proposal was spoken. Not with diamond rings, roses, or priests, but with 3 souls, 3 hearts, and 1 vow to face the hatred of the world, together. Night in Dusthaven was anything but quiet. The town square overflowed with bodies, torches stabbing into the darkness, flames flickering across faces twisted with anger. On the wooden steps of the mayor's hall, Edgar Thompson stood tall, his cane pounding like a war drum. His voice bellowed into the night, heavy with venom. This town once knew order, but since Amelia Ross set foot here, everything has unraveled. A shameless woman, defying God, defying law, choosing to live with not 1, but 2 outlaws. This is a stain on Dusthaven. The crowd roared. Stones clattered to the ground, curses filled the air. In the center, Amelia Ross stood unmoving. Her face was pale, but her eyes did not falter. Beside her, Wyatt Kane and Caleb Ward loomed like iron pillars, shields against the storm. Wyatt's voice rumbled low, cold as steel. "Anyone lays a hand on her, and I'll make sure they regret it until their last breath." Caleb took a step forward, his voice ringing out not as a threat, but as a call to reason. "Have you forgotten? Who pulled you from the flames? Who bandaged your children's wounds? Amelia is not your enemy. She brought you knowledge, healing, and hope, when all you had left was fear and shadows." The crowd wavered, murmurs rippled, some faces dropped, uneasy. But Thompson's eyes narrowed. He raised his cane, stabbing it toward Amelia like a weapon. His words cracked like a whip. "Whatever she's done, she's guilty. Living with two men, that is filth. That is betrayal of every standard we hold. If Dusthaven accepts this, then Dusthaven has no law at all." Amelia drew a breath, stepped forward. Her voice cut through the night like a blade. "If your laws only chain the innocent and protect the corrupt, then they are not laws at all. I did not come to Dusthaven to kneel. I came to build what you've tried to crush: knowledge, healing, hope. I am not ashamed of my love. You may throw stones, you may spit curses, but I will not leave." For a moment, silence. The first drops of rain pattered down, soft against the torches, as if the heavens themselves were listening. Wyatt's hand slid to his gun, his eyes burning like fire. Caleb's hand found Amelia's, gripping it tight, anchoring her. In that moment, Dusthaven split in two. Half the crowd still howled with Thompson's rage. But the other half, the ones who'd seen Amelia bind their wounds, who'd watched Wyatt and Caleb charge into fire, they stayed quiet. Their silence spoke louder than the jeers. And for the very first time, Edgar Thompson felt it. His grip on Dusthaven, his power that had once seemed absolute, was starting to crack. Dawn cast a gray hush over Dusthaven. The torches from last night's standoff had burned down to ash, but their smoke still clung in the eyes of the townsfolk. For the first time, Edgar Thompson's power felt fragile. His face flushed red, veins bulging with fury. He knew his grip on Dusthaven was cracking. But Thompson was not a man who surrendered. He rallied his hired guns, whispering promises of blood. Word spread fast. When Wyatt Kane heard, he spat the words like steel on stone. "If he wants blood, then we'll show him where it ends." Caleb Ward placed a hand on Wyatt's shoulder, voice calm but steady. "Not to kill, to protect. We will not become the monsters he paints us as." And Amelia Ross, standing between them, her heart hammering, but her voice ringing clear, declared, "We can't run. This is our home. If Thompson wants to destroy it, then we'll stand until the end." That night, the square filled once more. Thompson arrived, flanked by gunmen, shouting demands that Amelia kneel, that she renounce everything. But Amelia stepped forward. Rain slicked her dress, tangled her hair, but her eyes blazed. "I am not ashamed of my love. And if this is a sin, then I will carry it until my last breath." Wyatt and Caleb stood at her sides, hands on their guns, but their eyes fixed only on her, as though the whole world had shrunk to Amelia Ross. Then, a voice cracked the night. From the crowd, an old man rose, one Amelia had once healed. His hand trembled as he lifted it high. "She saved my life. Without her, Dusthaven would have nothing." A woman clutching a child added, her voice breaking, "She kept my baby alive. Who here dares call her shameful?" One by one, voices joined. A wave of townsfolk stepped forward, standing between Amelia and Thompson's men. The balance had shifted. Thompson's face went pale. Wyatt growled, his voice sharp as a blade. "Your game's over, Thompson." The hired guns faltered, backing away. Thompson screamed curses, but no one followed. His empire of fear crumbled right there, in the same square he once ruled. By sunrise, Dusthaven awoke to a new order. Edgar Thompson was driven from town, and the whispers about Amelia Ross no longer dripped with scorn, but with wary respect, even awe. On the porch of a small wooden house at the edge of town, Amelia sat with the morning sun warming her face. Wyatt Kane rested beside her, silent, calmer than he had ever been. Caleb Ward stood behind them, laying a steady hand on both their shoulders. His voice was quiet, resolute. "We've chosen each other. From here on, no matter the storms or dust, we walk this road together." Amelia smiled, tears shimmering at the corners of her eyes. In the morning wind of the wild frontier, a new kind of family was born. Not of blood, not of church, but of choice. 3 hearts bound against the world. And this was only the beginning of their story in the untamed West. 3 lives, Amelia Ross, Wyatt Kane, and Caleb Ward, came together to write a story that defied every rule. In a land of dust and gunfire, they chose love over fear. They chose to walk side by side instead of bowing to the old broken ways. Their choice shook the town of Dusthaven. And maybe it makes you stop and think too. If it were you, standing between the weight of society's judgment and the voice of your own heart, what would you choose? Would you bow to the law of others, or would you have the courage to live true to yourself? Share your thoughts down in the comments. I genuinely want to hear your answer. And if this story struck something in your heart, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you don't miss the next tale from the Wild West, where love, freedom, and the crack of a gun are forever entwined.